All right, good morning, everyone. Thank you all for being here today. Before we begin with today's announcement, I do have a brief comment to make on the situation regarding FISA. As Attorney General, I am committed to ensuring that this nation protects the civil liberties of every American while also keeping our country safe and secure. Unfortunately, some of the vital and non-controversial tools that we use to combat terrorism and crime are scheduled to shut down on Sunday, making this not an ordinary weekend. The House of Representatives has passed a bipartisan bill called the USA Freedom Act that would extend these tools while addressing important and valid concerns about other aspects of the government's ability to protect data. But without action from the Senate, we will experience a serious lapse in our ability to protect the American people. Today, I join the President in urging the Senate to work through the current recess in order to make sure that we can continue to appropriately safeguard this country and protect its citizens. Now, for today's announcement, I'm honored to be joined today by Director James Comey of the FBI, by Acting U.S. Attorney Kelly Currie here in the Eastern District of New York, and Chief of Investigation Richard Weber of the IRS's Criminal Investigation Division. We are here to announce the unsealing of charges and the arrests of individuals as part of our long-running investigation into bribery and corruption in the world of organized soccer. Now, many of the individuals and organizations we will describe today were entrusted with keeping soccer open and accessible to all. They held important responsibilities at every level, from building soccer fields for children in developing countries to organizing the World Cup. They were expected to uphold the rules that keep soccer honest and to protect the integrity of the game. Instead, they corrupted the business of worldwide soccer to serve their interests and to enrich themselves. This Department of Justice is determined to end these practices, to root out corruption, and to bring wrongdoers to justice. Now, the 14 defendants charged in the indictment we are unsealing today include high-ranking officials of FIFA, the international organization responsible for regulating and promoting soccer, leaders of regional and other governing bodies under the FIFA umbrella, and sports marketing executives who, according to the indictment, paid millions of dollars in bribes and kickbacks to obtain lucrative media and marketing rights to international soccer tournaments. The 47-count indictment against these individuals includes charges of racketeering, wire fraud, and money laundering conspiracies spanning 2 decades. FIFA and the regional bodies under its umbrella make money in part by selling commercial rights to their soccer tournaments to sports marketing companies, often through multi-year contracts covering multiple editions of the tournaments. Now, the sports marketing companies, in turn, sell those rights downstream, that is, to other TV and broadcast networks, to corporate sponsors, and to other entities for significant sums of money. Beginning in 1991, 2 generations of soccer officials, including the then presidents of 2 regional soccer confederations under FIFA, one being the Confederation of North, Central American, and Caribbean Association Football, known as CONCACAF, which includes the U.S., and the South American Football Confederation, or CONMEBOL, which represents organized soccer in South America, used their positions of trust within their respective organizations to solicit bribes from sports marketers in exchange for the commercial rights to their soccer tournaments. They did this over and over, year after year, tournament after tournament. In just one example, in 2016, here in the United States, we are scheduled to host the centennial edition of the Copa America, the first time that tournament will be held in cities outside of South America. Our investigation revealed that what should have been an expression of international sportsmanship was used as a vehicle in this broader scheme to line executives' pockets with bribes totaling $110 million, nearly a third of the legitimate costs of the rights to the tournaments involved. Now, the criminal activity that we've identified did not solely involve sports marketing. Around 2004, bidding began for the opportunity to host the 2010 World Cup, which was ultimately awarded to South Africa, the first time the tournament would be held on the African continent. But even for this historic event, FIFA executives and others corrupted the process by using bribes to influence the hosting decision. The indictment also alleges that corruption and bribery extended to the 2011 presidential FIFA election and to agreements regarding sponsorship of the Brazilian national soccer team by a major U.S. sportswear company. In short, these individuals, through these organizations, engaged in bribery to decide who would televise games, where the games would be held, and who would run the organization overseeing organized soccer worldwide, one of the most popular sports around the globe. And while at least one FIFA executive served as CONCACAF president without pay, there was little altruism involved, as he alone is alleged to have taken more than $10 million in bribes over a 19-year period and amassed a personal fortune from his ill-gotten gains. Now, in many instances, the defendants and their co-conspirators planned aspects of this long-running scheme during meetings held here in the United States. They used the banking and the wire facilities of the U.S. to distribute their bribe payments, and they planned to profit from their scheme in large part through promotional efforts directed at the growing U.S. market for soccer. In addition to the indictment, we are also unsealing today the charging instruments of 4 individual and 2 corporate defendants who have already pleaded guilty to their involvement in racketeering activity and other criminal conduct. Among these defendants are a U.S. sports marketing company, a Brazilian sports marketing executive, and a U.S. citizen who, in addition to being the former General Secretary of CONCACAF and a member of the FIFA Executive Committee, was a beneficiary of the 2010 World Cup bribery scheme. All told, these defendants have agreed to forfeit over $150 million in illegal profits that they've made from these crimes. And finally, we are also announcing that agents this morning have begun executing a search warrant at CONCACAF headquarters in Miami, Florida. CONCACAF, plainly an organization in crisis, we have already reached out to its representatives this morning to ensure that the people of integrity who work there know that we stand ready to work with them to reform their practices in the wake of the actions that we are taking today. Earlier today, Swiss authorities in Zurich arrested 7 of the defendants charged in this indictment, including the current president of CONCACAF. We are also in the process of seeking the apprehension of additional defendants. All of these defendants abused the U.S. financial system and violated U.S. law, and we intend to hold them accountable. Going forward, we welcome the opportunity to work with our partners around the world to bring additional co-conspirators and other corrupt individuals to justice. Today's action is a testament to the tireless efforts of federal prosecutors here in the Eastern District of New York, as well as the New York Field Office of the FBI and the Los Angeles Field Office of the IRS Criminal Investigation Division. I want to thank all of the agents, prosecutors, law enforcement officials, and analysts who contributed their time and their talents to this extensive investigation. I also want to recognize Acting U.S. Attorney Kelly Currie for his leadership of this U.S. Attorney's Office. And I want to express my appreciation for the cooperation and the assistance that we have received from our international partners, particularly the Swiss authorities. I want to make clear that the defendants arrested in Zurich this morning have the right to a fair and impartial extradition process, and they will receive a fair trial if they are brought to this country. Now, at this time, I'd like to introduce the current U.S. Attorney for the Eastern District of New York, Kelly Currie, who will provide additional details on today's announcement.
Good morning. The 14 defendants charged in this indictment held a variety of roles in the soccer and World Soccer Organization. The soccer officials charged were responsible for developing and promoting international soccer, and the marketing executives that we charged were hired to promote that sport. But what they did have in common was greed that drove them to use and exploit their positions for cash. You'll see here on 2 of the exhibits that we have that are part of your press packages today, the enterprise that's charged here. You'll see FIFA at the top and its confederate continental organizations, that's confederations underneath, including CONCACAF and CONMEBOL, the regional federations that are constituent members of FIFA, and the national federations. As you know, there are 209 national associations, including the United States, and other member nations of FIFA. Also part of the enterprise charge is the sports marketing companies. And as the Attorney General said, taken together, these entities comprise an enterprise of folks who work together for a legitimate purpose, which is regulating and promoting international soccer. However, as alleged in the indictment, what these defendants did was, with their co-conspirators, they corrupted the process. They corrupted the enterprise. Now, some of the officials charged in the indictment today held many roles in these organizations. For example, the defendant, Jeffrey Webb, he is a vice president and on the executive committee of FIFA. He also holds the role as president of CONCACAF. He's also on the executive committee of the Caribbean Football Union and president of the Cayman Islands Football Association, one of the national federations of part of FIFA. Jeffrey Webb used his position in these various roles, his position of trust, his fiduciary duties, to solicit and collect bribes from sports marketing executives who needed his support to get contracts to promote tournaments. The second, the sports marketing bribery chart that you have as part of your materials exemplifies many of the schemes we've charged. Of the 12 different schemes we've charged in the indictment, 9 are sports marketing schemes involving soccer tournaments. Now, just to walk you through the board, the business relationships that are represented, how they're supposed to work, are represented by the clear arrows. The tournament organizers, like CONCACAF, like FIFA, their role is to sell the marketing rights to a marketing company who in turn sell those rights downstream to broadcasters and corporate sponsors. What you see in the red arrows depicted there are and the role of the corrupt officials is that the corrupt officials solicited bribes in order to support bids by sports marketing companies, and in exchange, the sports marketing companies received these valuable contracts that, for example, the sports marketing companies often cleared millions or tens of millions of dollars in profits from promoting a single soccer tournament. The bribes were often funneled through intermediaries, both companies and individuals, who assisted them in disguising the bribes, often using the U.S. banking system and transferring funds to the United States. Now, as I mentioned, going back to the Enterprise Board, the entities that are at the core of our indictment are the Continental Confederations of CONCACAF and CONMEBOL, but other parts of FIFA are implicated as well. As the Attorney General mentioned, the World Cup 2010 selection bribery scheme, which is described in the indictment, alleges that in connection with the selection of South Africa to host the 2010 World Cup, there were bribes paid in connection with that scheme, and South Africa is one of the members of the African Confederation. In addition, the 2011 scheme to influence the presidency of FIFA, the Asia Football Confederation high-ranking official involved in that scheme was involved in paying bribes as part of that FIFA presidential election. Now, this sort of bribery and corruption in international soccer has been going on for 2 decades. Our investigation, the hard work that led to the charges here today, that itself took years. And the prosecutors who brought that case are here today, led by Evan Norris, also Amanda Hector, Darren Laverne, Sam Nitza, Keith Edelman, Brian Morris, with their partners at the FBI and the IRS criminal investigations. Their work resulted in the indictment. It's a significant step. But I want to be very clear. This is the beginning, not of our effort, not the end. We look forward to continuing our work with our international partners and any others who are willing to work with us as we seek continuing our effort to be successful in ridding global soccer from this type of corruption. I'm going to now turn the podium over to Director James Comey of the Federal Bureau of Investigation.
Thanks, Kelly. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. It's an honor to join the Attorney General and the U.S. Attorney to announce this important case, which demonstrates, I believe, that if you touch our shores with your corrupt enterprise, whether that is through meetings or through using our world-class financial system, you will be held accountable for that corruption. Nobody is above or beyond the law. These cases require a tremendous amount of hard work by gifted prosecutors and investigators. That hard work, in our view, is worth it. There's a danger that cynicism creeps into our lives and that folks shrug and say, well, that's just the way things are. That may be the way things are, but that is not the way things have to be. And one of the important lessons of this case is that we will not stop until we send messages that this is not the way things should be and that they must be different. Soccer, football, is an egalitarian sport. It is the beautiful game because the pitch is flat. It is available to anyone and everyone, no matter where you come from, rich or poor, boy or girl, you can enjoy the beautiful game. It has lifted billions around this globe and is an incredibly popular and fast-growing sport here in the United States. The game, according to the allegations in this indictment, was hijacked. That field that is so famously flat was made tilted in favor of those who were looking to gain at the expense of countries and kids who were enjoying the game of soccer. This hijacking is being met with a very aggressive prosecutorial response in order to change behavior. As the U.S. Attorney said, this investigation has been long and painstaking, and it is not over. And the work will continue until all of the corruption is uncovered and a message is sent around the world that this conduct will not be tolerated. I want to thank especially our prosecutors and investigators here in the States, but also our prosecutors and investigators who joined us around the world, especially our colleagues in Switzerland. Now I'd like to introduce the Director of the IRS Criminal Investigation Division, Rich Weber.
Good morning. It's great to be batting cleanup here today. First, let me start by saying I'm honored to stand here with the Attorney General of the United States, the U.S. Attorney, and the FBI Director to announce the charges today in this important case. And I'm incredibly proud of the work, the tremendous work of my agents at the IRS Criminal Investigation Division. Years of hard work, and that work is not done. Today is a good day for soccer fans, and it is a great day for the global fight against corruption, money laundering, and international tax evasion. Whether you call it soccer or football, the fans, players, and sponsors around the world who love this game should not have to worry about officials corrupting their sport. This case isn't about soccer, it's about fairness and following the law. FIFA's official slogan is "for the game, for the world," but the co-conspirators in this case corrupted the game for the sole purpose of personal gain, not for the game and certainly not for the world. Their actions were for themselves, for their own greed. Spanning over several continents and dozens of countries, this investigation conducted by IRS-CI special agents and the FBI was complex and thorough. The indictments and guilty pleas announced this morning highlight what can happen when those in positions of power abuse that trust, engage in undisclosed self-dealing, and misappropriate funds. One of the defendants in the investigation, Charles Blazer, decided very early on that he would use his position as a FIFA official for personal gain. As General Secretary of CONCACAF and a FIFA Executive Committee member, he received bribes and kickbacks in exchange for votes. Additionally, for the years 2005 through 2010, Blazer failed to accurately report his income to the IRS, amassing more than $11 million in unreported income. In addition to the charges announced today, the government is also seeking the forfeiture of all property obtained from the proceeds of the various schemes outlined by the Attorney General and the U.S. Attorney. To date, more than $151 million has been identified. As the best financial investigators in the world, IRS-CI special agents exposed complex money laundering schemes, uncovered millions of dollars in untaxed income, and discovered tens of millions of dollars hidden away in offshore accounts in countries like Hong Kong, the Cayman Islands, and Switzerland. This really is the World Cup of fraud, and today we're issuing FIFA a red card. This investigation is not over. IRS-CI special agents will continue to work with our partners at the FBI and the U.S. Attorney's Office, and will work with our international partners around the world to bring justice to those who would cheat the financial system and who play by a different set of rules. Today's indictment and our criminal investigation will root out those who seek to corrupt the beautiful game. Thank you.
All right, questions?
Attorney General, you have indicted the current Vice President of FIFA.
Yes.
You've indicted a former Vice President of FIFA. You have not indicted the current President of FIFA. Are you today giving Sepp Blatter a clean bill of health? Are you saying today that he is blameless of any alleged corruption?
You know, I'm not going to comment on the status of any individual who isn't named to date, because that would be unfair to them in many, many ways. I can say that this investigation is ongoing, it's continuing, but the announcement today is about the charges involving just these individuals, and I'm not able to comment further on Mr. Blatter's status. Yes.
Toda noticia from Argentina. It was made clear that in case the accused and the arrested are extradited, they're going to have a fair trial, implying that the extradition is going to take place. Could you please comment on that? Is it going to happen?
Well, we express our great thanks and appreciation for the Swiss authorities who executed 7 arrests this morning in connection with the charges that were unsealed here today in the U.S. The next step in that process is for the defendants to come to the U.S. to face those charges, and that's the process called extradition, where we will request from the Swiss authorities essentially an order transferring them to our custody so the process can begin here. And so it's really the next procedural step is extradition of those defendants.
What about the Argentine accused? The 3 Argentine accused. What's going to happen with them?
We're trying to apprehend the remaining defendants. If they're on U.S. shores, they'll be brought here and start the case immediately. If they're not, a similar extradition process.
Attorney General, it's been said that possibly Switzerland will start an investigation to try to understand how Qatar and Russia, and that being the host of the World Cup coming up, is your investigation going to be able to provide details or data that they can use in those further investigations and try to understand what had happened? You mentioned South Africa. Is that something that probably replicate in those elections?
Well, I'm not going to comment on the specifics of our investigation going forward or the Swiss investigation, but the Swiss authorities have begun an investigation into the World Cup designations for those years. We've worked very cooperatively with them in the past, and we look forward to doing so in the future.
Madam Attorney General, with regard to, I wonder if you could clarify with regard to the computer servers of FIFA. Were those accessed by purely the Swiss authorities, by the FBI purely, or by the two in tandem? And was that at the request of the FBI, or how did that work?
I'm not going to comment on the specific investigative techniques that we used in this case. We typically don't go into those specific detail. Our investigations have been separate, but we have been very cooperative with each other. But they are proceeding on separate tracks. Let me come back to this side of the room.
In a couple of days, FIFA is scheduled to hold an election for the president, Sepp Blatter running for re-election. Are you at all concerned that the timing of this announcement might be seen as an effort to somehow have an effect on that?
You know, we basically resolve cases when the evidence comes together and when they are ready for resolution. Unfortunately, FIFA has had issues around elections for years in the past, hopefully not for years to come. So we were not able to take that into consideration in the timing of our arrest. Let me go to the back here.
In the indictment, you allege CONCACAF replaced one set of corrupt leaders with another set of corrupt leaders. In your quest to reform soccer, how do you have any influence on an opaque self-governing organization
Well, as the U.S. Attorney has indicated, we look forward to working with these organizations in the future as they work to reform their own internal processes, and we stand ready to assist them in that. Evan.
A quick question about the expiration of 215 and some of the Patriot Act authorities. The FBI director recently told us about the increasing use of peer-to-peer communications between terrorists and terrorism suspects they're looking at. Does this complicate that problem? And I guess I could invite the FBI director to comment as well.
Okay. With respect to 215, many people focus on 215 because it relates to our ability to search telephone records that are held in bulk by the government. The reforms proposed by the administration and so far codified in the USA Freedom Act would essentially take the government out of the data collection and storage process, let it remain in the hands of the private companies, and we would go to court, obtain an order, and query that. But in addition to that particular provision, the important provisions of 215 that we also worry about are the ability to obtain what are called roving wiretaps on terrorism and national security subjects. In every investigation that I have ever done as a prosecutor, be it criminal or national security, the targets of that investigation routinely drop their electronic communication devices regularly, specifically to avoid law enforcement surveillance. We now have the ability to go to the FISA court and obtain an order with probable cause to track terrorists who do that. That provision will expire. We also have the ability to go to the FISA court and obtain general business records, such as bank records and other documents, again, in relation to national security investigations, similar to the way we use the criminal investigative authority. That provision will expire. So that is part of what is animating my concern over 215. With respect to the peer-to-peer transmissions that you were talking about, and the director can speak to this also, we are seeing many more people involved in terrorism investigations using peer-to-peer communications, specifically encrypted communications, communications that are designed to disappear once they are sent. It does give us grave concern about our ability to have eyes on people whose sworn duty is to harm Americans here and abroad. Jim, do you want to comment on that? No. All right. Let me go to the back here.
Yes, Madam Attorney General. Can you talk about the MO here between the marketing officials and the soccer federation people? Was this sort of an understanding that a bribe had occurred, or was it finesse, or how did it work?
Well, I'll have the U.S. Attorney give you more specifics on that, but I think you'll see from the charging instruments that they were pretty clear. There were discussions about bribes, there were bribes paid, and then there were documents created to cover up those payments. Kelly, do you want to provide more data?
The only thing I would add to the Attorney General's comments is not only were these discussions open among the parties, is that the marketing companies were also handing out bribes to protect their contracts from competing marketing companies who might want to come in and perhaps bid higher. So the marketing companies themselves, openly and notoriously among the co-conspirators, were paying bribes to keep the contracts they had and extend those.
So if the bids were higher, were the bribes higher?
Well, what we saw with a lot of these marketing contracts is many of these contracts covered tournaments that extended over a period of years or a period of editions. And so as the value of these marketing rights increased, we also saw the bribes increase. I'm sorry, I didn't hear your question.
Former president of AFA in Argentina and former FIFA vice president, was part of this corruption.
I'm not going to comment about anyone who's not mentioned in our indictment. Sir.
Regarding the individuals that previously pleaded guilty, do you confirm if they're cooperating in the investigation going forward?
I'm not able to confirm that. Sir.
As part of the offshore account we were talking about, will actually the financial institutions where we're involved be brought to justice as well?
Part of our investigation will look at the conduct of the financial institutions to see whether they were cognizant of the fact that they were helping launder these bribe payments. It's too early to say whether there's any problematic behavior, but it will be part of our investigation.
One of the things that you've mentioned is that this is just the beginning of this whole investigation.
Yeah.
This is just the beginning. What are we expecting to see over the next few years, not just through your department, but this investigation and in which capacity?
And Brazil also, please.
What I can say about our ongoing investigation is we anticipate that we will continue to work with our international partners and all those countries who will work with us. Today and going forward, we'll be providing additional information to those countries and asking for their help in our investigation as well.
You mentioned South Africa, Brazil. Brazil was involved in any of those investigations?
The 2014?
2014, yes.
It's not no conduct related to that 2014 bidding process is part of our charge conduct in this indictment. Yes, sir.
To pick up on that, is your message to the rest of FIFA to reform yourselves or else, or that you're coming after them?
I think our message to FIFA and all of organized soccer is that our investigation is going to continue. What FIFA does internally is a matter for FIFA and its constituent members, but I think the message is clear that law enforcement authorities in the United States and in other countries are not going to tolerate this corrupt conduct for, going forward. Yeah. I can't comment about specifics about how our investigation started, other than to say that through a variety of sources and means going back a number of years, our investigation gathered momentum and resulted in the charges today.
Just a question for the director on another topic. The director, concerning ISIS. I just wanted to get for Director Comey regarding ISIS. Wanted to sort of
Hoping you didn't see me back there.
in terms of ISIS, sort of just where things stand, do you sense that you guys now have a good handle on sort of the ISIS sympathizers that are here in the U.S. and sort of trying to prevent something like Texas from occurring again?
It's an extraordinarily difficult task to find, that's the first challenge, and then assess those who may be on a journey from talking to doing, and to find and assess an environment where increasingly, as the Attorney General said, their communications are unavailable to us even with court orders, right? They're on encrypted platforms. So it is an incredibly difficult task that we are enlisting all of our state and local and federal partners in. We're working about it every single day, but I can't stand here with any high confidence when I confront a world that's increasingly dark to me and tell you that I've got it all covered. We are working very, very hard on it, but it is an enormous task.
On the soccer story, sir, you described it as a World Cup in terms of fraud, and you're wanting to say...
That was the richest soundbite. I wish I'd thought, if I'd thought of it, I would have said it. Yeah.
You share, and you're trying to show the red card to FIFA to use this soundbite as well. But I think the question also is this. You have known, and it's been widely rumored, that there's been corruption on an endemic scale for 2 decades. Why has it taken so long to get to this point, even given the complexity of a global investigation of this kind?
Well, it's can't say in a particular case. I've investigated as a prosecutor many complex cases. They all take different lengths of time. With the complexity and the international component, makes all investigations particularly lengthy. It's hard to do, and to do right. You don't want to bring a case until you have the goods, and that takes time. So it isn't possible to set an egg timer on a particular case.
Can we see anybody go to jail, and if that's how long they will be in jail? Do the charges, we see racketeering in the charges, are these charges that...
So the most serious charges in the indictment now are the racketeering charges, and those are the charges that these defendants took the soccer enterprise and turned it into a criminal enterprise. The maximum sentence for that is a 20-year jail sentence. Of course, every defendant's sentence depends upon a range of individual factors.
Pleading guilty will give them an opportunity to set up a deal, maybe not going to jail?
Every defendant is different.
Attorney General, is there any liability for any of the companies that won media or marketing rights, some unnamed entities in the indictment? Are you investigating them? Should we expect more to come on that front?
You know, I can't comment on the specifics of who else is a target or subject of the investigation, except to say that the investigation is continuing and it does cover all aspects of the game.
One of the companies not?
I couldn't hear you.
Is one of the companies not Nike? Sorry.
I can't comment on that either. Sorry.
Do you think the World Cups in Qatar and Russia anything should be done about those going forward?
You know, I think that FIFA has a lot of soul searching to do as it tries to essentially monitor itself and improve the way in which it does business. And so the decisions on how those games are awarded and whether they go forward or not is really up to that particular body, and we don't have impact on that decision. And we're not looking to either.
So you're saying
Yes.
the scheme started in the 90s. Do you have any suspect, any concern concerning the 1990 World Championship in Italy?
In Italy?
That championship is not part of the conduct described in our indictment, and I can't comment about whether it's part of our ongoing investigation or not. Yes. Yes.
You talked about U.S. financial institutions, in fact, these meetings took place on U.S. soil. Is there any evidence that any other American interests were harmed by the conspiracy, businesses, media entities, anything like that?
Well, what we have seen in the indictment is certain marketing companies as corporate entities have taken guilty pleas. And as the Attorney General pointed through all the other defendants and the other forfeited properties and forfeited funds that we are attempting to obtain.
Who do you see as the ultimate victim?
Well, I think the ultimate victim is soccer writ large. It's the fans, it's the organizations, and it's the reason that these people were able to make so much money corruptly goes to the love that people have for the sport. And so it's taking that love and skimming off the marketing rights that allow these people to enrich themselves and line their pockets. I'm sorry, you first.
Who gets restitution then in this case, Currie? And who we did?
Well, I think ultimately that's going to be a decision for the courts, and it will be, I imagine, a lot of factors and input into that. And as you can imagine, as we've described the conduct in the indictment, there could be diffuse victims in various places. Sir.
So regarding the victims, the FIFA spokesperson today said that they see themselves as the victims. Any reaction to that? That's one question. And I have another one about the other competition, the Copa America, which is really important to Latin American countries. Can you elaborate on how the bribery went on in that?
Sure. As we described on this chart and elsewhere, the entities were corrupted, and in that sense, they're the victims. Both FIFA and the Confederate Constituent Organizations, they were corrupted, and so in that sense, they're victims. So I don't disagree with that statement. Regarding the Copa America, I'm going to ask Evan Norris, our lead prosecutor, to comment on that.
I would just say that the indictment is very detailed, and there's a table of contents on the second page, and I would just refer you to the Copa America scheme. There are two of them in the indictment. There's one that spans the early 1990s until 2011, and then there is a second scheme that encompasses the Copa America Centenario, which is also detailed in the indictment, and that spans 2015 up through the next decade.
Have you spoken, or do you plan to speak with Steph Blatter?
We're not going to comment on who we're going to interview or ask to interview in our investigation going forward. Sir. I'm sorry.
Multiple Brazilian individuals were named in the indictment. Have you received any cooperation from CBS or the Brazilian government? And are there any other individuals that you're looking into?
I can say that we are looking into individuals and entities in a variety of countries, and as I said before, we are going to be seeking the cooperation of a number of our foreign counterparts, and also providing them information as well, should they want to pursue their own investigations. Yes.
You mentioned that there was a corruption in 2011 with presence of FIFA, and you mentioned that Asian high-rank officials are involved. Could you give me more details on that?
I can't go beyond the details that we spell out in the indictment about that particular corruption scheme, about identifying individuals who are involved. I can't go beyond what we say in the indictment. Sorry.
How do you think in the culture of soccer has led to this that hasn't occurred in the NFL or in baseball?
I'm not here to comment on culture. I think we're here to comment about the charges and the facts before us. I can't comment on that. Yes, sir.
Which financial institutions are involved in this?
I can't comment on that information beyond what's stated in the indictment, so I can't name any of those institutions.
How is this going to impact on the host of the next World Cup, Russia and Qatar? What's going to happen after you discover all this scheme of corruption? Are the World Cup still going to take place there?
Ultimately, that's going to be a decision for FIFA and its constituent organizations. It's not going to be a decision for the Department of Justice.
We have time for a couple more questions.
Is there a concern, or have you looked at the possibility that there was a parallel fraud going on here as far as games being rigged?
There's no information in our indictment regarding that any games or tournaments themselves were influenced by the corruption charged here.
What about the U.S. bid?
The U.S. bid, I'm sorry, for...
Even though it's not part of the indictment, are you concerned, since it is an American-led prosecution, are you concerned that the American bid for the World Cup was somehow tainted by the same corruption? And then the follow-up would be, what's the interest in the U.S. policing global soccer?
So going to your first question about the United States bid for the games, what I can say is that our investigation is going to look at a broad area of conduct, and as the Attorney General stated, we're not going to go into specifics about what that will or will not cover. I'm sorry, what was the second part of your question? Global police. As we indicated, this racketeering enterprise impacted the United States in a variety of ways. CONCACAF's headquarters has been in the United States, first in New York and then in Florida, for the entire time period at Charge. A lot of the banking institutions and the way that these monies were funneled passed through the United States. Many of the people involved who are charged in this indictment either resided in the United States during some of the time, they conducted meetings regarding their scheme in the United States, so there's a large variety of impact on the United States. So this is a global investigation, and we live in a global marketplace. The world is not insular to a particular country any longer, and so virtually any international business transaction crosses borders, and this is really no different.
Last question.